This show is listener supported. You are listening to Adoptees On, the podcast where adoptees discuss the adoption experience. I'm your host, Haley Radke, and this is a special episode in our healing series where I interview therapists who are also adoptees themselves so they know from personal experience what it feels like to be an adoptee. Today, we tackle something so many of us deal with. What do you do when you get triggered? Let's listen in. I'm so pleased to welcome back to Adoptees On, Pamela Cordano. Welcome, Pam.
Thanks, Haley.
Pamela is a fellow adoptee and a psychotherapist who specializes in helping you to discover meaning in your life. And today you're going to help us with, we get triggered all the time. So you're going to help us with a triggered triage kit. I love that.
A triggered triage kit, what every adoptee needs.
Yeah, I could, how much do you charge for that? Because I would pay a lot of money for
A lot of money
to carry that around with me.
We need special purses with bling or whatever.
Yes.
Man purses with bling. Everybody can have a purse. A trigger triage kit.
Okay, so before we talk about the kit, which is awesome, can you just tell us, like, what does it even mean to get triggered? We hear that word all the time. It's like a buzzword now, getting triggered.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the thing is, we all know what it is, right? Because we experience it, and it's really just overwhelm. It could even be trauma, but our system just gets lit up like a Christmas tree with too many lights on it, and it's more than we can handle. And so we get overwhelmed or unable to really tolerate what we're feeling. And we often have our pattern ways that we deal with being triggered. You know, some of us get panicky and anxious, and some of us go toward addictions, and some of us get kind of sleepy and disengaged or disassociated. And we all have our ways that we deal with being triggered that we probably all know to some degree, or,
Okay, I think I've had all of those.
Well, yeah.
Plus stomach issues. Yeah, lots of stomach issues for me.
Yeah. Sometimes I think that we don't even quite catch the moment it happens until we're fully into it,
Mm-hmm.
and then we're like, oh my gosh, and we're overwhelmed and we're triggered, and it takes practice, and it takes maybe living more and more years to really get good at identifying when it happens so that we can catch it sooner.
Okay, I'm just like, okay, I need to figure out this out. How do I catch it sooner?
Yeah.
Okay, so last night I was reading a book, and my favorite genre is psychological thrillers, pretty much. I'm always reading one. And I don't know if you read much of those, but I'd say about 10% of them have some form of an adopted person showing up to exact revenge on their birth family.
Oh my
And
gosh.
you don't find that out till a little later on. Yeah, nice. What a
You read
nice
this
picture.
out of choice before you go to
Well,
bed?
it's only about 10%, I would say. So, most of the time it's okay. But last night I was about halfway through the book and I started feeling a little suspicious. And so I went to the end because I don't like surprises anyway. It takes a lot to surprise me, I would say. So I don't know why I enjoy thrillers so much. It doesn't make sense. I know. But I went to the end and I find this out. This is an adopted person who is coming to obliterate her family. And I was like, I just got so mad. Yeah. And so I was trying to sleep and I couldn't, of course, because all the things. My heart was racing and my stomach was at knots and I wanted to break my Kobo. And it's like this heightened response to something that shouldn't make me, I don't know. I feel like it shouldn't make me that angry.
Wait, but
But
who's
it's
who's that saying that it shouldn't make you that angry? That
right,
voice is
right.
quite suspicious. Who is that?
It's me,
Oh,
my inside voice.
it's
I
you.
don't know.
Okay, so can I interrupt this with bring up something about what you just said?
Yeah.
How we talk to ourselves when we get triggered is really important. And you and I have talked about this before on your show about having that internal adult that talks to us. So when we're triggered, if we have a voice that comes in and starts to criticize us, it's like that says, "Oh, you shouldn't be this upset, or you shouldn't be this triggered, or what's wrong with you," then we're just adding insult to injury when our system is hyper aroused and it's super uncomfortable on a physical and emotional level. So how we talk to ourselves with our triggers is something we can learn to do differently with help. I learned it in therapy.
Hmm. Okay, I need to learn how to do that. But because I often do have that inner talk, like,
Mm,
why is this thing that no one else seems to be affected by pushing me over the edge? And the other thing that's happened quite frequently, I haven't talked too much about this, but I'm sort of in a little bit of I don't know, a little bit of a situation with my church. And I would say they probably feel everything is resolved on their side, and I am doing my best to get to that point. But every time we go in the service now, I really pick up on anytime the word orphan is mentioned or the word adoption or anything about blood or family. There's these key words, right?
mhm.
And even though in context, what's being presented in the service doesn't even necessarily have anything to do with my situation or even with adoptees in general. It's those things plus this conflict I'm having that just then the whole rest of the service, I'm just like, "Yep, this is what happens."
Okay, so like I know you're not my client and we're not doing therapy right now at all, but if you were my client, I would ask you to just pause because both examples from reading a story about an adoptee killing their birth family and then this example with the church and these words and um, the way that we adoptees have an experienced understanding of these words, which is different from how they might be talked about at church. These are two huge examples of triggers. Like, I don't know if listeners even listening to this might be like, whoa, and overwhelmed already. You know what I
Mm,
mean? And so maybe I mean, actually, the first tool in the triage kit is pausing. It's like when we start to notice that something's going wrong in our systems, like we've read a story that's really triggering or upsetting to us, or we're hearing something that we're not expecting to hear, but we hear it and it triggers us. As soon as we start to notice that physiological, like hyper arousal, like that's what I was feeling when you were sharing the examples, the first thing to do is to try to learn how to pause. Some people call it the sacred pause. And it's a pause to try to take a good look at what's actually happening in the moment and to get one's bearings so that they can even know how to start breaking it up into little more bite sized pieces to even figure out what to do.
so what does that look like when I'm, say, sitting in a service and this is happening?
Hmm.
What does the pause look like? Does that mean I exit?
The more we can start to slow our awareness down, this is mindfulness, and pay attention to what's happening inside of us in the moment. If you were to really break it into a slow motion kind of thing, even if you're already triggered, you might notice your heart's beating faster or that your body's gotten kind of warm or that your muscles are tensing like in resistance to what's being said or that you might feel a fight or flight feeling like you want to get out of there. And all of this with practice can be observed before a decision is made about what to do with anything. So if you were really, really overwhelmed, it might be the best thing for you to, quietly get up and exit because it's just too much. As we learn to bear sensations in our bodies, either with the help of a therapist or with a meditation practice or a yoga practice, we become more and more comfortable handling more and more reactions that are physiological and stem from trauma and overwhelm. And and that's where we become more able to make choices about what to do next. Because if we're not used to this intensity, these feelings in our body, we might just be used to cutting off our awareness of our bodies and not even really know what's going on until we're really um, really overwhelmed to the point where we have to maybe just go in our rooms and shut the door. Or for other people, it might be like, engaging in some addictive behavior or whatever. We go into some other action.
Mm-hmm.
So ideally, I mean, like if I was like that little angel on your shoulder, and you're in church, and I'm not the other one on the other shoulder is the one saying, "Guy, why is this upsetting you? It's not upsetting anybody else. What's wrong with you?" Right? So if I'm the nice little person on your shoulder, I might say, "Okay, it's hold on, hold on. We don't have to listen right now. Let's just take a breath and pause. What's happening right now?" And what's happening really is what's happening. The question what's happening right now is really what's happening inside of you right now. And the answer is really about sensations, like my chest is tight, I'm sweating, my shoulders are super tight, my jaw is tight. I have this urge in my body to just get up and get out of here. It would be answers like that would be available with enough loving kind of asking of the self, like what's happening right now. And then you might say, this, that, then this is happening. And I might say, okay, well, let's just take a couple of breaths because breathing is always good for being triggered. A couple of big breaths, and that changes things in the body and the nervous system. The shoulders can drop sometimes, and you can see a bit of breathing and even just being talked to by somebody inside yourself is helping. And we have to kind of go bit by bit with being triggered of, can we hang in there or do we have to make a change, like a behavioral change, like get out of the room or, something else, depending on the situation. Put the book down, throw the book away, put the book in the backyard until tomorrow morning, and tell your husband to get rid of it.
That's pretty good.
What do you think?
Well, I've already calmed down because I was breathing when you were talking me through that, and I was like, "Oh, I've already calmed down." That's good. Okay, pausing.
What do you think it
Mhm.
was? Yeah, what do you think it was that calmed you down? I mean, was there a moment that you noticed something start to shift
Oh,
into calmer?
I was doing deep breaths, so sorry to the for the sound on that, I'll mute it, but, um,
Mhm.
I was doing deep breaths, and when you said, "And then your shoulders could drop," like, that literally happened, my shoulders dropped back, and I just felt like my whole posture was more relaxed.
Mhm. Yeah. So if we say that the first thing in the trigger triage kit is to pause, then the second thing could be to take a couple of big breaths and just oxygenate yourself, and then to ask the question with a really kind voice of like what's happening right now, and trying to notice what's happening even in a sensation way, because the sensations are the most honest answer. Our brains could start saying, "Oh my God, that woman is such a jerk. I can't stand her. She always does this, blah, blah, blah." But that's not going to get us anywhere. But if we say to ourselves, "What's happening right now?" and we check inside, okay, I feel like I'm going to throw up, or I feel like I'm going to pass out, or whatever things might be happening inside of us. If we have a kind voice asking, then our response has a chance to be listened to. And then now we're relating to ourselves, in a way that a mother or father might relate to a child in a loving way.
Mhm. Hmm, that feels peaceful.
That's good.
Okay, so
Problem solved.
yeah, okay, I'm good. But this is my recounting of the triggering moment. It's not necessarily the moment.
Uh-huh, right. Yeah. So there's more, I mean, so we could go on and say more things about the trigger triage kit.
What would you do next?
Well, something we talked about a lot at the adoptee retreat with Anne and with the participants was we talked about how there's two different networks in the brain, and one network is called the default network, and it's just the same stuff we already think and know that's based in fear and based in our previous experiences in the world. It kind of goes around and around in circles, and it's not really. It's just recycling what we already know. It's not open to new information, and so our default network is really that voice that says to you, like, why are you reacting to this story? Nobody else is. That's the default network talking. And it's just this patterned way we talk to ourselves that often isn't very nice because it's kind of fear based and it wants us to get in line and, you know, pull it together or whatever. And the other network that's completely unrelated, it's an entirely different network, is the direct experience network, which takes place in the present moment. And so that's the place where something new can happen and where we can actually change what's happening with us. And so, in the example of being in church, where you're hearing stuff and you're triggered, with the example of pausing and taking a couple of breaths, already taking a couple of breaths is in the present moment. It's a direct experience in the present moment. And then talking to yourself and saying, what's happening? The question really is, what's happening right now? Right. So the answer is going to be what's happening right now. And now we have a chance for something new to happen and for there to be something that can heal in the trigger because we're in the direct experience network where new things can happen. So to me, therapy is about helping clients get into the present moment and into their direct experience so that they can have a new experience. And I never want to sit with a client and have them just tell the same stories with the same emotions over and over again because they're going to leave the session in exactly the same shape as when they walked in.
Mhm. And I love what you say about that's a healing thing to go into that and, like, you're reprogramming,
Hmm.
um,
Yeah,
because
you're literally changing your brain.
Mhm. Well, and I think sort of what our default is when we're triggered, right, is to run, right? And so if we can build these couple steps in, this is giving us the opportunity for healing instead of avoiding it and then always getting triggered by the exact same thing because you can't always avoid it.
Yeah. And it takes sometimes more than what we do with ourselves. But even if we're in therapy, we still have the 6 days in between the sessions, where we have to deal with life and our own triggers ourselves. So it's really the awareness of what's happening in our traumatized systems, and then the kind voice that understands we've got a reason to feel that frightened or angry or overwhelmed. So we have kindness and we have awareness, and those two things are really going to help us. And that's really what therapists do: is they're kind and they're aware and they're investing themselves in us.
So, will you, fit in my bag that I'm gonna carry around everywhere? In my kit
Yeah,
nice sparkly
yeah. And then when you this is what's happening with me is then when you get really really good at this, you're just going to kick me out because you're going to want to put something else in your bag. I'm not going to. I'll be in the way at some point, and that's when we know we can handle it ourselves.
Oh, this is so helpful, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, another thing to think about with when we get triggered, and of course, this is there are variations. There's mildly triggered, moderately triggered, severely triggered. When I'm severely triggered, which it happened to me a couple weeks ago, I can have a feeling of kind of paralysis, where not physical paralysis, but I don't know what to do, and I feel terrible, and I don't know how to get myself out of it, and I have to kind of wait a bit for something, whether it's some rest or whether it's the right conversation with the right person or some part of me to show up to help myself. Sometimes I can't do this on the spot, like we're talking about with the church example. But um, when we're not that severely triggered, when we're more mildly to moderately triggered, and we pause and we ask what's going on, a lot of times if we're not used to this yet, we have an impulse to do something like, well, I mean, for me, if I'm triggered and I just can't cope with it, Ben and Jerry sounds really good to me. And so part of my brain knows that if I eat a whole pint of Ben and Jerry's, I'm not going to sleep very well. I'm going to feel bad in the morning. Like I'm going to feel kind of like too much sugar in the morning. But what we can do with ourselves, or some people, they have other things they do. Maybe they do online shopping or they're playing phone games or whatever to try to soothe themselves. And there's nothing wrong with soothing ourselves, but when the soothing behaviors aren't really our goal in the long run, like I don't want to play Candy Crush for too long, like half an hour is okay, but I don't want to play for 6 hours. Um, then we can work with ourselves. We can say like, I can say, okay, Pam, I know you want to go play Candy Crush right now. That's fine. You're welcome to do that, but let's just give it 5 more minutes. Let's see if we can bear this feeling for 5 more minutes before we go to that. And that's a way of like titrating our tolerance for how we feel. And again, this is not when we're extremely triggered. This is just when we're mildly or moderately triggered. So we build in space to experience what we're feeling, or even journal about it before we go to the behavior that we know the trusted behavior that's going to soothe it or change it. And then there's always other things too. I'll just throw these out. Like it's always good to do, if we are up for it, when we feel triggered and we're inclined to be either like we want to do flight, fight, or freeze. If we can manage it, it's good to do a few gentle yoga poses and be with our breath. It's good to call a friend or somebody that we trust and talk it through with them and go toward a person who's safe. It's good to journal. It can be good to turn on music that is soothing or happy or comfortable music. There's a lot of things we can do. It could be good to go read poetry or some kind of inspirational text that reminds us about another way of feeling in the world. So we can make a connection to things that make us feel better. That's always a good thing to do too. If we can manage it. When I'm really triggered, sometimes I just can't. I just isolate and, kind of go down the rabbit hole for a while. And then I come out and apologize later.
Yeah, if I didn't have 2 young kids, I'm sure I would be spending more time in my bedroom with the door closed some days.
Yeah. As long as you're nice to yourself in there, it's fine with me. you know? We can't go in the bedroom and be mean to ourselves. That's just terrible.
Oh my goodness. Well, I won't give you any more examples of the things that I've said to myself because it's been worse. So, anyway, this was really helpful. Thank you.
Sure.
You mentioned the retreat. You and
Mhm.
Anne Heffron run
Yep.
adoptee healing retreats, and there's some coming up. And do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, we had our first one in February in Berkeley, California, and it was just incredible. I mean, I knew we had a good program lined up for everybody that we had 10 people that flew out to see us, but I didn't know how it was going to feel to be in a room with 12 people, all of us adopted, and something about the resonance of adopted people where we don't have to explain anything and we just get to work really and work at what's in our way of becoming more comfortable in our skin and more joyful and having more access to what we want in life. So it was a wonderful experience. I feel changed by it. So we have one coming up in July, again in Berkeley, and one in November in Berkeley. And then Anne and I in January of 2019 are going to go out to New York, and then we're going to go to London and have a weekend each place. So we're really excited. And then we're going to have a part two adoptee retreat for people who have already taken part one, who want to come to part two, and we're just going to reinforce and build some new aspects of healing.
Amazing,
Yeah,
amazing. So if people are interested in attending that, where can they get in touch with you?
they can find Anne Heffron or me on Facebook and message us, or they can also email me at pcordano@comcast.net.
Awesome. And I have links to all of your social media and your websites up on adopteeson.com so people can find you there too.
Great.
So, in addition to the adoptee retreat, you have something else that's really exciting. Like, tell us about it.
Yeah, this is not adoptee specific, but um, a friend who's a Jungian psychologist and I are leading a group of 10 women on the Camino de Santiago in Spain, and we're considering it like a non-religious pilgrimage. It can be religious depending on the person, but it's just a pilgrimage of growth and transformation. So we'll be walking for 8 days in a row, and then we're going to meet up with an artist in Santiago, and we're going to do a like an integrating project. And the trip filled up really quickly, so we're really excited about that. And we're going to have another one in April of 2019, and we're going to do the same thing. We're just going to walk for 8 days and spend 2 additional days on the Camino, an ancient pilgrimage pathway in Spain.
That sounds like incredible.
Yeah, it's like one of my dreams to put healing together with traveling. Like even though we're not going to be acting as therapists on the trip, I just think traveling in an intentional way is therapeutic in and of itself. So I'm really
Mhm.
excited about it. Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, people can get in touch with you for more details if they would like to come along.
Thanks. Yes.
Yeah. Well, so good to talk to you. Thank you for the very, very helpful trigger triage kit. And yeah, I think that people are going to find it really valuable. I do. I already do. I hope you had some good takeaways from Pam, like I did. And some of those things seem so simplistic, but honestly, when you are in the moment and you're having this like experience that is so emotional and like that's what it takes is those tiny little steps to sort of bring us down back into awareness of what's really going on for us. So I want to challenge you to try it. I'm going to be trying it out too. So um deep breathing, lots of deep breathing in my future. Friends, if you would like to come and meet Pam in person and myself and our friend Anne Heffron, who Pam does these wonderful adoptee retreats with, come to San Francisco. Come and meet us in May. Sunday, May 20th, Anne Heffron is going to be teaching her Write or Die class, which I'm very excited to take from her. And then later on in the evening, we're going to just have a hangout meetup, just hanging out. That's it. Excited to spend time with listeners and some former guests of the show. And you can come. You can come. I would love it if you would check out adopteeson.com/events has the details, or you can go to our Facebook page and click on the events tab there. All the details are available for you. And I'd love to meet you in real life. This show is listener supported. And what that means is there are so many of you standing with me actually donating to the show monthly as a financial partner, which helps keep the show going. You are helping to cover all the production costs and all the behind the scenes things that it takes to run a podcast like this. So I just want to say thank you so much to my generous donors. And if you feel that this podcast is a valuable resource, if you have learned something from it, or if you know another adoptee that would find value from it, I would I would really love it if you would consider partnering with me. Adopteeson.com/partner has details of how you can join up monthly or there's a one-time donation link right on the homepage of adopteeson.com. Thank you. Thank you so much. And another way that you can help support the show is by telling just one person about this episode. Maybe you know of an adoptee that struggles with triggers, just like me, and they would find some of these tips really, really valuable. So I'd love it if you would just text them right now and say, hey, have you heard the latest Adoptees On episode? Or send them a message on Facebook. Um, I think it would be really helpful for them to learn these techniques that Pam has taught us today. Thank you for listening. Let's talk again next Friday.